I really enjoyed Ira Silverman's Zoom presentation. Was it November, I think, where he took us across Canada on the Canadian and the supercontinental bit. And it just reminded me of a lot of the places that I had been and photographed, and started looking back at some of my photos and realized it's been 40 years since I've started rail fanning in Canada. So I thought that might be an interesting show to do. My first trip was in 1983. My wife had a business meeting the Friday after Thanksgiving. So we decided to do a road trip with our 10 and 12-year-old kids. Went up to Toronto. They loved it. We stayed in the Holodome. My wife got to do her business meeting, and I got to run around a bit and do some rail fanning, and discovered the yard at Spadina or Spadina. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It was a great place with a lot of interesting power. I asked the guys in the shop if I could take some pictures, and they said, sure, just don't stand in the gauge. And they gave me free run of the place. So that was my introduction. The Ontario Northland was laying over, and this is one of their F units. And of course, this was in the shadow of CN Tower, which is what we see on the right. Back then, VIA was using a lot of hand-me-down CN and CP power, and I was really interested in the FPA4s, which we see here. They also ran a lot of RDCs for local and short haul service. There's a bridge that goes across the yard and the tracks, which is still there. This is a view looking west of some of the power. There's a turntable in the back there, and I think that turntable is still there if you look on Google Earth, but the rest of this area has been redeveloped dramatically, and it's quite interesting to see how much it's changed over 40 years. This is the Victor and the Vanquished. Here we've got FP9, which was used a lot for the passenger trains along with the Alcos. And the new kid in town is the LRC. I think 6900 was the first unit. And I did see those on a couple of trains later on in the trip. So this is another view in the yard with some VIA power. And I particularly enjoyed the ones with the VIA in red. I don't know why they didn't do that on all of their locomotives. I guess they were short of cash. But I thought that was a very attractive scheme.
Is that a triple hopper, so to speak, coaling tower there, looks like?
I guess that's a coaling tower. That's what I would imagine. This was an engine terminal for I don't know how many years. No steamers back in '83 though. This is a CN unit, and maybe VIA was leasing it, just moving some of the passenger equipment around. And that's the main line that comes out of Windsor Station in the background there. There's some more shots looking west from the bridge. GO Transit, Government of Ontario Transit, had a big coach yard here. They called it Bathurst. And this is one of the commuter trains that was, I'm assuming looking at the red lights, it was pushing out from Toronto. This was a GP40 that was modified for passenger service. And there's an inbound with a F40 coming into Toronto, Windsor Station. This is again up on that bridge in the afternoon. Another commuter.
Yeah, it's Toronto Union Station, Jim. Windsor Station, Montreal.
Oh, okay. This is a westbound via train. I think this is, my notes said this was number 79, I think, heading towards Windsor. Pretty long train. If there were dome cars, I think it was the Canadian. I spent some time out at Oakville, which is a commuter stop for some commuter trains on GO. This is a former F unit, but it's actually just a cab control now with head-end power. You can just barely see the actual motive power on the other end of the train. Here's another with the head-end power tucked in behind the lead unit 721, which is a GP40-2W. That's a former Rock Island unit. And I think a lot of these have been replaced because this was quite a while ago. I've got some pictures of some of the newer power later on. And this is over in Bayview. There was a trains article on Bayview Junction sometime in the mid-'80s. It was quite the hot spot. And I went there with Tom Bunjon. And he got there a day or two ahead of me. I had to work. And he ran into 3 rail fans from Baltimore the day before I got there. Charlie Plantold, I think Ed Hess, and another member of the Baltimore chapter NRHS. And again, this is a head-end power car, and the actual motive power is on the other end of the train. And here's an RDC set, I believe, coming off the line that goes to Windsor, which is around to the right. If you go straight here, you head into Hamilton, eventually to Niagara Falls and to Buffalo. Here's an LRC set at Bayview Junction on train 71 going to Windsor. They had matched passenger cars. They didn't last very long. I think they only were around for about 10 years. But the cars lasted a lot longer. There's a different view of another LRC train heading to Windsor with some older coaches behind it. And this is from a bridge over the tracks with an inbound train to Toronto. This area, this is a big Y, and there's a botanical garden in the middle of it. And there are multiple bridges, and there are multiple overviews, at least they were back in the day, from the botanical garden, where you could get these great photos with a lot of traffic, both freight and passenger here.
What was the timing of the formation of VIA compared to Amtrak?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I think it was probably about the same time, but maybe somebody in the audience can give me a specific year.
I think it was late 70s, maybe 78.
Yeah, the CN train's about 76 and then CP in 78. So 78 is when it was completely a national system.
Yeah. This was one of the attractions for this.
VIA was founded as of January 12th, 1977.
All right. Thanks, Doug. This was one of the attractions of Bayview Junction. CN was running ABA F units on trains through here. This is the line that's coming out of Toronto going to Buffalo with an intermodal train. And here it is in Hamilton laying over. We were escorted to this viewpoint by the CN Railroad Police. When we asked him, is that train in the yard? He says, follow me. Very helpful. Then they used this set also. Oh, one more shot. This is Toronto, Hamilton, and Buffalo. This is their turntable in the yard in Hamilton. These are a pair of SW9s. This is a little further west of Bayview, with another westbound via train heading to Windsor.
That's one of the Cuyahoga Valley line units.
Yeah. Seen many paint schemes. They painted Cuyahoga Valley, there'll be at least 4 then, right? Okay, here's the F unit set. They ran a train, it was called the Nanticoke train. It went to the Lake Erie Works in Nanticoke, Ontario, and I think they carried slabs on flat cars or in guns, and they had a caboose at each end, and they ran around the train at each end of the run. And here it is at Dundas, heading up the Niagara Escarpment, which is what gets in the way of Niagara Falls and causes a big cliff of water to.
So I guess Canada ran cabooses longer than the US.
I don't know.
Until about the early 90s, and
Yeah.
US railroads pretty much the 80s.
Okay, so now we'll sort of move away a bit from Toronto. I was up there in 2002 with Bill Kwokman, and I just picked a few shots here. This is in Trenton, Ontario. And of course, here the F units and the FAs and the LRCs have been replaced by the ubiquitous F40s, but the passenger cars from the LRC sets are still running here in 2002. This is at Trenton, Ontario. And then here's another shot over the river with some CN units. And then here we are at Woodstock with another F40 set and some classic, perhaps Bud cars behind it on one of the trains to Windsor. And this, of course, is the replacement for the F40s, P42s. And again, still hauling the Bombardier passenger cars from the mid-80s. Back in 2000, we still had a lot of SD40-2s. If you were railfanning a lot, you got tired of them. So I tell the young kids, you get all those Gevos and you're tired of them, just wait 20 years from now. You know what you're going to get. You might wish you had gotten a few more shots of them. Here they're starting to introduce the dual flag livery on the trailing unit there. The Pac-Mans are still leading. This is at Hyde Park. Still some SD40-2s, this time with a general merchandise train. And now we're seeing the replacements for the SDs. CP got a lot of AC-44 CWs, and they're starting to make inroads. Again, here we are in 2002. This is at Newtonville, Ontario. We're still 2002. This was rather odd to see a C424 on a road railer train. I didn't know until I did some research for the program. This was actually a cab control car. It was converted in 1995. I don't know why CP would be using cab control cars. but they were. This was at least when I was there in 2002. It built the latest version of passenger power, the F59PH on Geo Transit. This is at Mount Pleasant, Ontario. Now some shots of the Ontario Northlander. This is at Washago. This is in 2000. And it's a rebuilt FP7. They remotored them with Cummins prime movers. And this was a train that went from Toronto up towards Cummins. And this wasn't actually the Polar Bear Express, that logo on the front, but they did run trains north of there up in the far north woods of Ontario to serve the population up there that had no other way to get in and out of civilization.
That looks like former Ontario Northland painted equipment.
Well, it is Ontario Northland.
Okay, I guess I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, it is Ontario Northland. They ran out of Toronto with this, and then they had another train that went north. But I guess depending on the season, they swap power around. And
Are the Canadians required to have their bell on the roof of the locomotives?
I saw them a lot on some of the older power and the passenger power, but I don't know if it was a Canadian requirement or just a preference.
I'm wondering about that bell too. I bet you it's iron and not brass.
So this is another set on the north end. This was in 1985, I think, when I visited this area on a family vacation and got to do a little rail fanning. And you'll notice the passenger cars on the rear are looking a little different.
TEE.
Yeah, it's a Swiss TEE. The entire set was brought over to the U.S., but they got rid of the motive power on the one end and replaced it with an FP7. Got another shot. So this is at North Bay in the station, doing just a station stop, and I think this was also in 85. Yeah, and then this is the other end on a different day, and this is a cab car from Switzerland.
Very sad right there.
So.
Looks like a grasshopper.
Now this is north of North Bay. This is in the black fly capital of Ontario. This was in the summertime. Bill Kaufman and I were standing with our parkas, covering up as much of us as we could, waiting for this train because there's no place to know what was coming while hiding in the car. This is at North Feronia. We got it here, and then we chased it a bit, and this is at Callander, Ontario. And that's the breeding ground, I guess, in the foreground for all the black flies. And this is in North Bay. This is, I believe this is a Huron Central freight with CP power. Again, it was nice to see, where it's nice to see certainly now all the SD40-2s that are, for the most part, long gone. Again, we're in North Bay. This was 1985. We stayed at a fishing camp on Lake Nipissing, and the Montreal section, westbound section of the Canadian arrived every evening about 5:30 or so, and I would hop in the car in a 10-minute ride. I could get over here and get some shots of it. Most of the trains were led by FPA4s. It was nice to see those. Another view. That station is still there. The tracks have all been torn up. It's now a museum, I believe. And this is the the eastbound section of the Canadian heading to Montreal with an FPA 9 and a single
Oh.
dome.
Did it have a diner included there?
Do not know. I'm not sure how long they put the trains together in Sudbury. I'm not sure how long that is from Montreal. So I don't know if they had a diner on there or not.
Yeah, I believe that car with the door on the side is a diner.
Yeah. Ira Silverman would know all these questions.
The dome car is a Skyline coffee shop. I don't know if it's in service, but it could be a diner if they wanted to use it.
So this is in Sudbury. This is where they separated and put the trains together. This is eastbound. And there's the Toronto section on the left and the Montreal section on the right. So now we'll move to the prairies. My first trip out here was in 1997 with Dwayne Litzenberg. And this was Tabor, Alberta. And Bill, you remember us going through Tabor on this last trip, and none of these were there. I think there was one large stainless steel elevator. We didn't see any trains on this line. This goes between Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, but Dwayne and I got photos of a lot of grain elevators. Now we're on the line from Medicine Hat to Calgary, and this was at Brooks. I'm sorry, this is a Suffield grain train with SD 40-2 leading, which was the power set at that time.
Is Medicine Hat on a Indian reservation, you know?
I don't think so. But I'm not that familiar. I've been there briefly twice. This is at Bassano, which is a little west of Medicine Hat. And we were here hoping to get a photo of a train going by a grain elevator, and we got lucky and actually got a couple. So there's one. Then this is work train came through here. And these, at least back then, there were multiple companies that gathered wheat for transshipping by rail, and each of the companies had their own unique color to their grain elevators. And most towns had multiple elevators. This one had at least two. Then we were fortunate enough to find some trains at Gleichen. And these are all eastbounds. They had 3 elevators there. Pioneer was in the red. The Alberta Wheat Pool was the teal color, and then I think that's United Grain in white. It's an eastbound intermodal train. Again with SD 40-2s. Notice the third unit, the window is blanked out, so I guess that's functioning as a B unit. And another stacked train with more SD 40-2s. Bill and I went through this area in September, Bill Kaufman and I, in 23, and there was nothing like what you see today. I think there's, in this town, there was one large, complex, big stainless steel bins with the loop track, but all the wooden elevators trackside are gone, except for a few towns. We went up to hopefully catch some second generation EMD power on the line out of Lethbridge. and things that changed since the Railfan article about a year ago, but we did get a few interesting trains. This is a tip yard in Lethbridge. Highway bridge over the yard with a Jeep 38-2 and an SD60. Just switching in the yard. And then we went to Dunmore Yard and Medicine Hat. Found them working again. This is a GP20C Eco and an SD40-2, and they were switching to put together one of the trains that was going to departing Dunmore Yard shortly. On the way back to our hotel in Lethbridge, we saw this off in the distance and we decided to explore it. This is at Mossley, Alberta. It's the Aspen Crossing Railway Museum. So these three well-preserved, well, mostly well-preserved elevators. The guy on the right looks like he needs a paint job, along with a lot of interesting equipment. And this is really out in the middle of nowhere. So I wonder how they support themselves, but it was interesting to see these still standing. So now we'll move to the Canadian Rockies. I've been there 4 times for rail fanning. My wife and I really like to hike, and she loves the Canadian Rockies. So we've been up there 5 or 6 times just for hiking and wildlife photography. And so we've had quite an opportunity to see some interesting stuff up here. This is the Banff Springs Hotel that was actually a Canadian Pacific property at one point. It's a pretty impressive building, and so's the nightly room rate.
Looks like about 300 rooms or more.
Yeah, and it's $700 a night. That's a pretty good piece of change.
Ouch.
Yeah, but it's really a gorgeous building. Oh, my first railfan trip there was in 1997, and this is at Banff, sitting in the siding eastbound, waiting for something to head west. And again, just SD40-2s still rain. This was in 1997, as I said. The other crossing in town offers this view. This is a wide nose cowl unit, SD40-2F, and coming into town with another grain train. And that's Mount Brett in the background.
What was that, spring or something? Yeah, that shot? Or
That shot was taken, I believe, in June.
a lot of snow left.
Oh, yeah. Those mountains they're not as high as the Canadian Rockies, maybe about 11,000 feet, I think. But they're much further north. So the snow hangs around. This is at Eldon Siding, which is geographically north, railroad west of Banff. Often find trains meeting here. This was in 1997 also, I believe. An SD40-2F leading another grain train.
These were called Draper Tapers after the guy at CP that I guess designed that.
Yeah, the mechanical. Was he at CP or was he at CN? Because CN had something like this too, didn't they?
I'm not sure, but it's identified with that design.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jim. I think it's CN because the SD50Fs and the SD60Fs had the same design and they came first.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, did you try any rappelling up on that peak up there in the center? Rappelling, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. It's blurred by the exhaust here. I can't tell. I guess from the other side of the tracks at Eldon with another grain train. Well, then the next hotspot is Morant's Curve. And as you may know, that it's named after Nicholas Morant, who was the official photographer for the Canadian Pacific Railroad. And if you have a chance, there's a book about him with a lot of his photography. It's just fascinating. He traveled system-wide in a caboose. He had a platform that was in kit form that he made, that he carried, I think, on a flat car, and he and his wife could put it up trackside to get some elevation. And they would live in the caboose, and he would photograph the trains, and he had radio communication, and he could tell the trains when to and where to stop. He couldn't make them back up, but he could pose his photographs just the way he wanted to. And so his name got attached to this particular spot. And it's right alongside the highway. And this is the westbound Rocky Mountaineer, heading through Moran's Curve.
I think they're running ads on PBS these days.
Yeah. So this is another photo from Moran's Curve. This was in April of 2003. I had a brother-in-law who was a skier and was going to go ski here with his couple brothers and a friend, and he was injured in a skiing accident 4 months earlier in Wisconsin, and was not going to be able to ski. But my sister, his wife, called me and said, you know, if he goes with those guys, he's going to try to ski. You need to go with him. And I know there are trains up there, and you keep an eye on them. So I did. And it was in April, but we had a little bit of snow every day. And so this is looking the other way on Moran's Curve in April. And this is what it looks like 2 months later in June. So winter stays a long time up there. This is another picture from that April trip, an eastbound tank train. I'm not sure what's in those tanks, whether it's empty ethanol, but this was in 2003. Another photo from that trip. Again, this is another westbound with an SD40-2, which were not easy to come by as the years went by. And it's replacement C44-9W behind it, or an AC44, I think it's designated. This is one more from the trip Bill Kalkman and I made up in 2006.
Ranch Curve's gotten pretty badly treated now. We were there a couple years.
Well, let me show you. Here's what it looks like now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
You should have brought your chainsaw.
Well, there's a Jersey wall alongside the road, so you can't park where you used to be able to down at the end there.
Man.
And you've got, it's treed in. There is a slight gap there that you can see. I'm in a fenced-in sort of viewing platform that's about 3 or 4 feet wide by about 50 feet long, but it goes, behind me where all the trees are. So, yeah, this was from September when I was there with my wife, and there are a lot of photo spots that have disappeared as a result of changes in the highways in that area. But it's still a magnificent place. This is from 2023. Kathy and I stayed in Lake Louise, and it was a short walk into town where we go for snacks or dinner. And I happened to, be smart enough to carry my camera with me, and I heard some rumbling, and here comes the Rocky Mountaineer. This is the eastbound version in the late afternoon.
Lake Louise has been a go-to resort for decades, hasn't it?
Well, interesting you mentioned that, because this chateau, Lake Louise, the oldest section dates back to 1913. It's been around
Yeah.
a long time.
Remember, it's frozen. People have to walking.
Yeah, my grandfather and grandmother went to Lake Louise way back, well, the 20s, I guess it was.
And every time I've been there, and I've been there probably this area 7 or 8 times, they're constantly adding on to the hotel. And in the background is the Lake Louise ski resort, which was used for alpine events for the Calgary Olympics. So this is a really fascinating spot, and this is a picture from the far side of Lake Louise. But here's my favorite picture of Lake Louise. There's the hotel down there, and this is my wife. She and I hiked up here. This is called the Plain of the Six Glaciers, and you're towards the end, you're hiking on the lateral moraine of the Victoria Glacier, which has receded after forming Lake Louise how many millennium ago.
I guess you took your lunch, your dinner, and the next day's breakfast and lunch.
Well, interesting. You used to be able to drive and park down there. You can't anymore. You'd have to take a bus from town. And there's a shuttle bus and hotel. So we took the first bus and we started hiking, and we went as far as we could and decided we better head back. I think we started our hike about 9:30. The last bus left at 3:30, and we just made it. So,
That looks like a trail marker just aft of your wife's left arm there. Is that what it is?
well, it's a cairn. I don't know if it's a trail marker, but it is a well-defined trail. You can follow it rather easily, but it's a rather vigorous hike. But we've just enjoyed doing this, and she loves it so. And I'm always ready to go to Canadian Rockies because there are railroads all over the place I can photograph.
That's right. Do you see any bears?
Not on this trip. One time we went in early June, and before, it really warmed up, and before the tourists arrived en masse, and that's when we saw the most wildlife, because they were down in the valley. As it gets warmer and people show up, they retreat to the hills and the mountains. So if you want to go see wildlife, go early in the season.
Is that fine earth there in that pile? It's like a remnants from a mine or something.
No, this is the lateral moraine from the glacier that receded. So that rock is maybe a little finer than what you're seeing up there, but all of this rock was deposited by the glacier or glaciers.
Okay.
Yeah. The Lake Louise station is still there. It's now a restaurant, a very nice restaurant, but not outrageously priced. And every time we go up there, we have at least one dinner in this restaurant.
We're cleaning.
And this is the other side of the station. These two passenger cars here serve as the kitchen and the dining room for the restaurant, if you so choose. On the nights they're open to eat there, where you can look out the window and there's the main line of the Canadian Pacific. This is the westbound Rocky Mountaineer. This is the originating point for the trip to Vancouver. Now the guests stay at the Chateau Lake Louise, and then in the morning they depart from the station.
So that's arms with a kitchen in it?
Yeah. You can see the fans here, the exhaust fans.
Yeah, right.
So you can have dinner in the dining car. It's really nice. Really nice. And there's enough train traffic, you're likely to see a train.
Like the PLA station.
The passenger train is on the original line. And if you look up the hill, that's the new line. So I think it's CTC, but I think there are more trains are on the upper line than the lower line.
Well, I'll get to that. I've got some more pictures there. And so this isn't banned. When Bill and I were up there in 2006, I don't know if we knew about this ahead of time or somehow got wind of it. This was an excursion train, a circle route that I don't know if the CP was doing it independently or whether they got a tour operator, but I think it was something like $5 or $6 grand for 6 nights on the train, 40 or 50 people, lots of room to move around. And we caught up with it here at Banff and photographed it. This was the tail end car. I think this is Mount Stephen.
Now that's class.
That's class. And here's the train approaching Moran's Curve. And again, there were 40 or 50 people on this train. You had lots of room and very plush accommodations. So it was going to go up to Banff, Lake Louise, over to Golden, down the Columbia River, come back over Crow's Nest Pass back to Calgary. So here's looking at the station that we saw earlier, looking the other way. And there's 2 tracks here. Typically, when I've seen it, the upper track has been westbounds and the lower track's been eastbounds. But here, because they were using the station, they flipped it. All right, so we're gonna leave the CP and head up to Jasper now, and then come back. This is the station in Jasper that's used by VIA. You can rail fan from right here in town if you want to. From the station platform, you've got a preserved CN locomotive. This is a U1A. It's been there since 1972. And they keep it in good condition, at least cosmetically. This is from the station platform. It's a westbound coal train with power on it. This is a crew change point.
Was that a totem a couple of slides back, Jim?
Yeah, there's a totem pole right here.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Jasper's a really nice town. Gorgeous area. This is the originating and the point for the westbound trips to Vancouver on the Mountaineer, and then the return. This is where they terminate. So this is a westbound that came in the evening. Right at the station platform. When was this? This was 2010. Looking the other way, in 2016, they've changed things a little bit with the logo on the shield on the front. That's the crew giving me a wave as they're helping to unload the passengers when they arrive in Jasper. This is the Whistler Mountaineer that goes from Jasper, or did from Jasper to Whistler to Vancouver. This was in 2006, just laying over in the yard. This is the eastbound Canadian in 2012. They spent a couple hours here. They serviced the train's crew change point. So there's plenty of opportunities to see the train there. And on one of our trips in 2000, we went into town for breakfast, and this was sitting there. This is the American Orient Express laying over. And I don't know anything about where this came from or where it was going. But this train, of course, ran in the U.S. for a while, and then they just didn't have enough business, and the cars got farmed out to other operations. This is the westbound Skeena that goes to Prince Rupert, and I think this runs a couple of times a week, and so it lays over in Jasper at the end of its run. And then east of Jasper, the town itself, are some really great locations. I believe this is his Henry House, and this is an eastbound grain train that was just sitting in the siding as my wife and I were driving, looking for wildlife in the late afternoon. And this is, whoops, let's go back here. This is at Swan Landing, when Bill Kaufman and I were out there in 2006 with an eastbound CN train. And the reason we were out here is to, well, I don't want to say we're going to catch this because we thought we'd see something a little different, but this is the Southern Alberta Railway. And it was taken over by a company called Savage that operates a number of railroads. They used to have an operation out at the refinery area out at Delaware City, and that third unit is in their paint scheme. But we had this real dog's breakfast of a consist when we were here. That's a former Conrail C39-8 and the point. So it was an interesting chase with some interesting scenery. Just would have been a lot nicer if we'd had an attractive paint scheme. So back on the CN main line, this is east of Jasper along the Athabasca River, which is in the background, which flows into Hudson Bay, and eventually the water goes into the Arctic Ocean. There's a road out there that's one lane. It's eastbound for a couple hours and westbound for a couple hours. So you got to check in town to see which way you can go when. But there's some great locations out here. This is a westbound train with empty center beam flat cars. A little while later, we caught another westbound train. This is train 147, intermodal. You work your way around that Rocky, so I'll go a little further, and there's another overlook. This is a westbound coal train with an SD50F on the point. And the reason we were out here is we know we were going to see the eastbound and the westbound Canadian if they were on time, and they were. So this is the westbound Canadian. Looking the other way from the previous photo.
Eastbound, Jim.
I'm right, eastbound. Okay, sorry. Here it is, the tail car going away with the domes. I think there were 4 or 5 on here. And then shortly thereafter, here comes the westbound Canadian. I can see 4 domes there. Great scenery. You can't get any better than this. And there it is in black and white going away. So now we'll go back to the Lake Louise area. This is a westbound train going over the Trans-Canada Highway. This is one of my sorties while I was out with my wife. We go hiking and she gets worn out and takes a nap, and I go rail fanning. This is right along the Trans-Canada Highway, a little further west, another one of the SD40-2Fs with the grain train. Here we are. This is an eastbound. One of the problems now rail fanning here is you can see the Trans-Canada Highway off there to the left. There are Jersey barriers in the middle of the highway, so you can't make any U-turns if you see something coming the other way. And about 15 or 20 feet off the highway is about an 8 or 10 foot wildlife fence. So you really can't do much rail fanning in this area unless you want to shoot over or through a fence with a train that you happen to see, it can just stop right then and there. This is a Canpotex train. This is probably, I think this is probably an empty train, but these carry phosphate fertilizer. A lot of that's exported from Canada. There's that same train having ducked under the Trans-Canada. Lake Louise is just to the left. This was on my 2003 non-skiing trip with my brother-in-law. This was a train approaching the Continental Divide with Mount Stephen in the background. Another shot from right along Trans-Canada. This is a westbound. Here, both tracks are on the same side of the highway. And again, you just could pull off and shoot to your heart's content, but now you have some impediments in your way. This is a Lake Wapta. This is an eastbound Canpotex train also. I'm not sure what the mountain is in the background. It might be Mount Stephen. One of my trips with my wife, we were out hiking along the Bow River on our last day before heading back to Calgary. And I heard a train, and just through the trees, I could see this flash of gray and maroon and yellow lettering. And my God, it's the Canadian F units with a business train or a passenger train for excursions. And I thought, well, you know, at least I got to see it. We got back to Lake Louise. We were again staying right near town, and there's a little facility there, and the train was parked. I talked with the crew, and they were very informative. They said, yeah, we're doing some servicing. We'll be leaving at 3 and heading west up Kicking Horse Pass. So I struck a deal that this was going to be the last excursion for us in Banff or Lake Louise before heading back to Calgary. So we chased this train up the hill. And here it is, just a little bit west of Lake Louise.
Could those cars be ex-Penzi from the golden years?
I think they're ex-Canadian Pacific and Canadian Pacific currently. Yeah.
Yeah, there's two sides built in the 50s for Canadian Pacific.
Yeah. So this is it from a highway overpass at Divide, which is the Continental Divide. And this is at a place called Lake O'Hare Road, which is one of the few places you can still railfan now because it's accessible, but only if you're going eastbound on the Trans-Canada without making a rather difficult left turn through the Jersey barrier. So that was a nice treat. This is my only shot that shows anything on the spiral tunnels. It's really difficult to view nowadays. This is an eastbound going into and exiting, coming around the loop on the lower tunnel.
I guess all this forested area, is this protected government land?
It's national park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's once you Banff is in the national park, Lake Louise is in the national park. Once you cross the Continental Divide, you're in Yoho National Park. You're all the way down to Field. So yeah, there's not much you can do about trying to improve access. And I don't think anybody take kindly to a chainsaw in a national park to clear out Moran's Curve.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spiral tunnels were very accessible in the 80s, and now they're just about gone.
Yeah. This is still accessible. This is near Cathedral. This is a westbound coming out of the lower spiral tunnel, and you can see the highway right there. And there's a place to pull off, so you can still photograph here. As you continue west, you've got a pretty steep grade down the Field, and here's an area where there's a lot of sliding going on. You can see that tunnel over there on the left, which is basically a rock slide and an avalanche slide tunnel, and then it ducks into another tunnel right here on the right. And
So that's glacier deposits?
well, I don't know that they're glacier deposits. They're just erosion, I guess, from the mountain. I don't know that there are any glaciers up there. There, 10,000 years ago, there probably were.
Okay.
But yeah, but it's just barren rock. So this is eastbound going up. That tunnel you saw in the previous view. And then now we're down in Field, and this is in 1997. The Kicking Horse River there, the pass behind it. The more current picture, this is 2009, and you can kind of see that grade right there that starts as soon as you get past that switch. And this is Field itself, which is a crew change point. Little office there. A couple of places you can stay here and some nice restaurants. This could be a base camp for some railfanning if you wanted it to be. West of Field, the notorious location is Otter Tail Creek here. This is 1997 with the ubiquitous SD40-2s. And this is more recently, this is 2009. This is one of the Calgary Olympic locomotives. Once you get to Golden, there's a line that goes south along the Columbia River to Crow's Nest Pass and into the U.S. And this is an empty coal train I photographed there in 1997. If you head west, you go up Rogers Pass, the Selkirk Mountains. There's a tunnel that's relatively recent. When did they build that? Opened in 1988, and they use this for westbound only. It's 9.11 miles long. And here's a train coming out of the Mount McDonald Tunnel.
Is the coal up there mostly strip mined, or is it deep mines, or do you know?
Oh, this coal is being taken to one of the ports on the Pacific for export. Yeah, I'm not sure where, this, for all I know, well, I don't think this would come from the Powder River, but there are no coal mines up in this area. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Yeah, but not up here.
There are coal mines down in the Crow's Nest area.
This is Revelstoke. This was taken in 1997. And some of these trains carry sulfur too. That's another commodity you see up there. But if you're up high, you can see looking down, even if it's empty, that it's stained yellow. And that's another view at Revelstoke, westbound, going over the Columbia River. Head a little west, you come to Clan William, where some glacial lakes, some short tunnels. This was in 1997. So that's a westbound and eastbound in the same area. Once you get to Kamloops on the CP and the CN, they come together. One is on the north side of the river for the most part, and the CP, which got there first, is usually on the south side of the river as they head west. The CEP getting there first took the best right away, so there's a lot of bridges on the CN, and this is around Walatchan. So the railroads are paralleling the Thompson River. There's another bridge over the Thompson on the CN.
Was that any electric utility? It looked like a couple of stacks there.
Back here, This one?
Yeah, just above the locomotive.
Oh, here, off to the left. I think that's just some electrical tower that's got some striping, maybe because for clearance.
Okay.
I'm sure, somebody coming in with a bush pilot doesn't. Yeah, I think that's just some power lines. Okay, so another bridge over the Watchin. You get down to Ashcroft. This is an eastbound train on CN. Sorry, and this is a westbound train on the CP. Side by side on either side of the river. You get down to Basque, and that's the CP in the background. This is a CN bridge between Ashcroft and Basque. The two lines are on the same side of the river and they're crossovers. And from here west to Mission, it's directional running with the CN line being westbound and the CP line being eastbound. And what I've noticed here is a lot of the trains are one on the head end and one on the rear. This is at Martel. This is the westbound Rocky Mountaineer. And this is a Toketic. And this is a good example. Here's trains on both sides of the river. And in this case, the CN's on the CN line and the CP's on the CP line. This is approaching Spence's Bridge. Train full of zebras, as they call them. Most of those are, not all of them. I think the ones that are zebra, well, at least 4 of them, I think, are SD60s, Fs, with the taper. And this is the bridge itself at Spence's Bridge. Now we're here at Thrinock. Again, a bunch of SD60Fs. This is somewhere along the Thompson River. I'm not sure exactly where, but there's some rapids here, and we saw a lot of these boaters with these tours from various resorts shooting the rapids with trains to entertain them if they were tired of getting wet. They would get up on the banks and have some lunch, and they could watch the rail traffic or watch the cars on Trans-Canada 1. This is at Gold Pan. They've got some short avalanche tunnels. This is on the CN line, which is much more difficult terrain to negotiate. This is another westbound. This is at Sedalin again. We're shooting right from the highway. All these shots along the Thompson and Fraser Rivers are right from the highway for the most part.
That shot you had with the 6 locomotives, that must have been a really long train, or it's a grade, I guess, right?
I don't think it's much of a grade through here. I mean, it's water level route. There's some grade, obviously, but maybe they were moving power, because I didn't see many trains. Most of these trains would have 2 or 3 locomotives, and that was it. So there's a coal train. Well, maybe not. I can't see any coal in here, and I don't know why it would be running westbound empty, unless it's sulfur. This is at Morris. Then we come to one of the more interesting locations. This is at Lasha. This is a DPU on the end of a coal train, again on the C end. And this is very rugged territory. And they basically had to carve the right-of-way out of this wall that is very unstable with a lot of rock moving down it. CN westbound, here's a CP westbound. And this is one of the more interesting locations with these avalanche tunnels here, or sheds, that are made of concrete and steel. And again, here's the grain train. This has got one on the rear and probably just one on the point. Now it is going slightly downgrade.
Those poles, are they former electric catenary, or is that something about a fencing thing, or what?
Well, these are probably slide fences, avalanche fences.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so if rocks come down and break the circuit, because there was a situation a number of years ago where there was a huge rock on the tracks right here, and the train hit it, and both of the locomotives went down this embankment, and the lead unit almost ended up in the drink, and it was very difficult to get to them. This is a bridge over the Thompson River on the CN line. And there's a different view. And that's in the background here, that's the Fraser River. And then they'll follow the Fraser River down to Vancouver. Now we're at Cisco, where the lines cross each other. This is a CP heading east, going across the Fraser River after it comes out of the tunnel onto the bridge. Looking the other way, that's the CN line up at the top, heading west. There's a view from down below. This is the Rocky Mountaineer heading across the Cisco Bridge very slowly. And this guy is one of the crew members who saw us and decided we needed some of the special Rocky Mountaineer cookies. So he got up on the front end and handed us each a bag of their famous cookies. I was a little bummed when I saw this guy open the door and get on the front of the locomotive, but actually this is one of my favorite photos now because of the story behind it. But they go over here very slowly because it's so scenic and the passengers can get a look at the river.
You don't want to turn down a good cookie.
Yeah, no. Maybe if I'd known there were cookies from the beginning, I wouldn't have been upset that somebody's walking on the front of the engine. And this is a view from the other side of the bridge. And just in the lower right-hand corner, you can see this. This is a connecting track between the CN, hooks up to the left, it goes down the hill and will hook up with the CP line. And this is the only connection between the two, between Basque and Mission near Vancouver. So this is at North Bend, British Columbia. This is eastbound on the CP, and there's just a crew change point here. And that's a view of the small yard as the trains are coming away from the crew change point, heading east. On the other side of the river is North Bend, BC, and this is where the CN crews change. And this is south of North Boston Bar. And this is a empty sulfur. Well, I think it's a loaded sulfur train. You can see some loads in there, but that yellow cast to the hopper car gives that away.
You said this is June, Jim?
Well, these are 2006 and 2009 interspersed. So sometime between June and I think September.
So what was it like in the 70s for temperature?
Oh yeah, it was gorgeous weather. Yeah, really nice. This is Anderson Creek, the big trestle over Anderson Creek. There's a CN train westbound. And this is CP. And this is at Flood, British Columbia, and this is where the railroads start coming out from the mountains. And I put this in here because it's CN 8802, and of course CN and CP parallel through here. And here's CP 8002, and this was taken on Crow's Nest Pass in 2023. So we've advanced 40 years from the first photo, and that is the end of the program.
Very good, Jim. Bravo. And
Very good.
Thanks, Jim. Great photos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Were those slides that you converted or digitals?
Anything prior to 2002 is digital.
You mean after 2002?
Anything after 2002 is no, I'm sorry, 2004 is when I went digital. Yeah. So anything prior to 2004 is digital.
Those
Digital
slides.
now, slides converted to digital.
Yeah, the slides look great.
Yeah.
And so do the digitals. They all look great.
My wife is a quilter, and she enters her competitions, and they usually require slides. And then they decided they wanted digital images. This is when you could get 1 and 2 or 3 megapixel digital cameras. And so she got a Nikon CoolScan slide scanner. And when I saw what she was doing, she said, well, why don't you give it a try? And I did, and I fell in love with it. So I started scanning slides back in 2004 as soon as I started shooting digital. So experience has served me well with that. It takes a while. There's a bit of a learning curve, but yeah.
You have a picture of a train with an SD42 leading, followed by an AC44. Wouldn't the AC44 as a more modern locomotive be more comfortable for the crew? Was there something about equipment in the older locomotive that they needed?
I have no idea. But I tell you, you talk to an engineer who's been around a while, and man, it's not uncommon to say, you know what? Just give me an SD40-2. I'll take an SD40-2 any day. They seem to love them.
Still holds true in 2024.
Yeah.
So your photography was digital, but your hiking was analog, right?
It was analog. It was Tylenol and a leaf.
Jim, if you look at the comments, you've got an invitation to show in Canada.
Yeah, I saw it. I just caught a glimpse of that from Mike, right?
Yeah.
So if Mike, throw your email up on another chat, and I'll try to catch it. And